ADHD can cause an internal ongoing battle if not handled correctly, or it can make you work harder. ADHD is very prevalent in today's world. Take a time to think about when there was a time that you were around with someone with ADHD. Some of the symptoms are usually hyperactivity or impulsivity, inactivity, or anxiety. Anxiety is one of the major symptoms that we don't talk about when it comes to ADHD. The definition of ADHD is a highly genetic brain disorder syndrome that has to do with the regulation of a particular set of a brain function and related behaviors. So this could be passed down through genetics. It could just happen with you. Over 11% of the children today in the U.S. are diagnosed with ADHD, and 4.4% of adults have been diagnosed with ADHD in today's world. Now I'm going to go into the symptoms of ADHD. The major symptoms of ADHD are inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity, and anxiety. Inactivity is the ability to concentrate and stay on task. When I was diagnosed with ADHD, I had a very hard time with inattention and not being able to pay attention to what was going on around me. One of the major symptoms is that when the teacher was talking, I was never able to just look at the board and understand what was going on. These kids have a hard time with staying on task or learning what's going on or fully just retaining that information. The next is hyperactivity and impulsivity. Some examples are a student who cannot sit in their seat for very long, someone who's always having to move around. This can also deal with irrational behaviors and problems. When talking about irrational behaviors and problems, it's talking about children who have behavioral issues. So children who can't follow directions or take no for an answer, or someone who has to move around constantly. The next is anxiety, and anxiety is a very big reason that people have ADHD, because when you have anxiety, you start to worry about everything, and therefore anxiety throws everything off in your brain. So anxiety can cause a person's mind to be thrown off or struggle with ADHD. Anxiety makes a worry about every little thing and can be very irrational. For me, I have very bad ADHD and also have very bad anxiety. So the anxiety and the ADHD play a part in one another for sure. So once again, when you start to worry about every little thing, then yes, you'll not be able to pay attention or understand what's going on. Some major treatments to ADHD are medication, exercise, and behavioral therapy. There are many different medications that you can take to help deal with ADHD. First, you need to contact your physical provider and go visit them. It can also help people function and get the extra help they didn't know they needed. For example, I was put on Vyvanse when I was a young girl, and I started to grow out of that medication, so we started to try new ones. Now, medication is not always the first answer to fixing your problems. Exercise is very good for ADHD students. This is very important for ADHD people and people in general. It releases stored up energy that can be pinned up. It can also help create endorphins. So endorphins are good feeling types of hormones that we produce when we exercise or doing something physical or some kind of physical activity. So it's very important for ADHD students to have those endorphins, because ADHD students have low self-esteem, most of the time. So for them to feel good about themselves will help them have a confidence in and outside the classroom. The next is behavioral therapy. So behavioral therapy is a great way for children to learn how to be on routine, a schedule, and take accountability for their actions. This is also a great way for parents to know what is going on and for them to help their children. A great example of behavioral therapy is just getting a child on a tentative schedule. Getting a child on a tentative schedule will help them focus. It will help them knowing what's coming up next and what to look forward to. The children will be on task. They won't ask questions as much, even though a child should be asking questions. It's very important to get the parents involved as well. So getting the parents involved will also help. Getting the parents involved will also help the student learn and grasp and let the parents know what's going on inside the child's brain. So the hardest thing about ADHD is it is invisible to outsiders. People just assume that we are not being good parents and that our children are brats, or when they don't have a good idea, they are exhausted. This quote is very good to remember when a student with ADHD comes along, is that the student is probably trying their best, and for a student to try their best, we also have to realize that their best might be different from someone else's best. That is today's speech. It is very important to realize the outcome that we have on treating people with ADHD the same way we treat everyone else, even though they need a little bit more help than others.